How is it going, everyone? Welcome back. So I know that I mentioned I wasn't going to trade during Asia session, but I did, right? So I didn't trade this on the top step accounts because I am saving those for the true proper 10 a.m. New York sessions, keeping things consistent, making sure everything tracks out. But this was taken on my main accounts, as you can see here. It is through Trade Um, and I'm gonna go over the trade I took, why I took it, and how it played out. So this trade, right? Let's see here. And I got out at 268, right around there. So it was just around a 2RR trade. Um, and I'll go over the reason I took it. Originally, I was truly targeting let's see, like that, like a 3RR. But I got out a little early because what time was that? 9 o'clock. I entered at around 8 o'clock, so it was an hour long, and I did have family over. I just moved to Philadelphia recently, so today's Sunday. I had my family over for dinner, so I kind of took this trade, on my phone, and I know I shouldn't. One of my rules is to only trade on my computer because it allows me to see things a little more clearly, but this trade presented itself so well, and I'll go over exactly what happened, how I took it, and yeah. So again, it's basically just the same as that 4 hour strategy that I always talk about over and over. So if we want to start with the weekly, right? Bias for the weekly is going to be bullish because as we see, right, we were creating highs and then it kind of broke structure here, and you might want to say, all right, we're gonna go lower. But last week was extremely bullish and kind of rejected that structure break. So that's indicating to me that we want to continue in our bullish pattern. When we go to the daily, we see that there's this gap down here, this imbalance that was tested and rejected, and continuing further, as well as creating that inverse imbalance over here. Then there was also an imbalance created on Wednesday's chart. So then we go down to the 4 hour time, right? This is my favorite, obviously. We already have these daily imbalances marked out. What do we have in the 4 hour? An imbalance right here, which is in between this giant new week opening gap. I didn't mark out that new week opening gap just because it's so massive and we could already see it in the 1 minute time frame, right? You don't need to have it highlighted. So what do we do? As I always say, mark out that 4 hour open. So that's right here. We mark it out. And what do we see, right? Price creates that big bottom wick immediately, right? 56 points. And it closes. Oh, actually, I messed up. That is the open price. Wow. So probably could have had a safer entry, tighter stop, target something better. It'll probably continue further. That, honestly, noticing that right now, it's probably a good thing that I'm doing this video review. So anyway, so if we imagine, I'm gonna do it as I had it charted, and then I will adjust it and go over the proper setup. Anyway, I accidentally marked out this as the open, which is wrong. Open is up here, but I had this marked out as open. What do we see, right? The same thing as I always mention. Let me pop this bad boy up here, right? Price opened low, went up, and then started chopping around. But then as we see, it started going up. Now, what does that mean? This created that big old wick right here, right? Then we see it goes up, and then it tries to retest, goes below, but it hasn't broken that low because clearly that this was already bought out, right? That's why it was a huge wick, because all these buyers took over. Sellers couldn't hold strength. It was also within this 4 hour gap or daily gap, one or the other, which shows that it's clearly rejecting this gap. It doesn't want to go back down. Then we have the strong push up, right? This is a very strong push up. And originally I believed that this was the open, and we're changing state of delivery right here as well. So I entered in my 5 micros here. I added 5 micros there, and I closed out full over here for around $1,500 in profit for this trade. Put my risk right below this gap because I felt like this, because it created 1, 2, 3 gaps up. First gap might be tested. Second gap, potentially. I didn't have strong indication that the second gap would be tested, so I didn't care for putting my stop so low. And I targeted originally roughly 3RR, closed out at 2RR. Like I said, had family over for dinner. So this was the trade I took. Now, if we are going the proper way, right? I'm going to remove this and remove this and go over what my patient self should have done if I truly marked it out properly. Once it got here, right, and it's testing here, it rejects, goes back up, breaks above this huge gap, and clearly that gap never gets retested, but we see that here, right, we get these high wicks, and then this changes state of delivery again, create a gap, and then this gap was tested by a bull candle. So realistically, this could have been a flawless entry right there with, like I said, a tighter stop loss. Even if you exited at the same spot as me, you would have had a 4RR trade. Now, why is that? Like I said, this created these two gaps, and these two gaps it was tested and rejected by a bull candle, showing that it wanted continuous bullish momentum. So, like I said, if you had the proper marking indication of the 4-hour open, you would have had a better trade than me, I guess. But this is the trade I took. Entered at 74.25. Had my stop marked out here. Exited at 68.2. 68.25. So technically roughly 3, I guess. But like I said, because I added in at 999, what would that make my average entry be? Around 82 or something. So again, like I said, basically a 2RR trade. Still pretty decent. Made 1,500 on the day. No complaints there. Luckily, it worked out, even though I accidentally marked out the wrong 4-hour open. But that's why we backtest and journal and make sure that what we're doing is proper. So hope that helped, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow morning for New York session. Take care.